Hello everyone and welcome back to Warplanes, and today we're going to take a look at one of the most infamous planes at Tier 5. It's going to be the Tier 5 French heavy fighter, the SE-100. It is premium and mine is currently German, but that's one of the specialities of the European tech tree, right? We're going to take a look at it, see how it stacks up to the rest of the planes, and yeah, we'll get started right now. So the first thing I should mention about the SE-100 is, of course, it is in the European tech tree. So if you do plan on getting this, you're actually gonna it's gonna be more value for your money because you can make your French planes or any of the European planes any nation in the game except for, I can't make a French plane a Polish plane, but you can make it any of the standard USA, USSR, Germany, Japan, British, or the default nation of the Europe. So of course I can't make an SE-100 Israeli, but or Chinese. I cannot make it Chinese, but outside of that, you can make it whatever you want. You just have to pay a small fee of 100,000 credits. Choose where you put your crew, and yeah. Which makes the SE-100 and any of the European planes just more valuable because you can use them to train up any of your other crews, really. But that's not exactly the reason why I bought this plane. I actually did not put any money into the game to get it, but I just used currency or gold that I earned during events, and then bought it at a 50% discount. Which, if you are going to buy it, I would highly recommend that's how you do it. Because, I mean, if you can get the SE-100 without paying any actual money and with full discount or 50% discount, like, it's one of the best premiums you can possibly get at the tier. Just hands down, just an amazing aircraft. But let's figure out why. And the first thing we'll notice is the guns. It has the best firepower out of any of the planes at this tier. I'm not sure if that's just due to the increased efficiency of my pilots and my equipment, but even without that, these have probably some of the best firepower of any heavy fighter at the tier. I mean, the Key 45 has good firepower, the 110E has good firepower, but this one just has something a little bit uncomparable. If we take a look, the SE-100 gets, I think, 420s. Oh, no, it gets 520. No, it gets, okay, 420s in the front, which are incredible guns. Just absolutely fantastic guns. Just for quick comparison, if we go to the Germans, where is it? 110E. Oh, click on it. Okay, the 110E, that's why you have more firepower. You get 420s. The 110E only gets 220s, and then also two machine guns. But if we compare the 20s that you can get with it, okay, the 110E actually does have slightly better guns with its 20s, but you only get two 20s, and then you also get a bunch of machine guns. So it's kind of comparable to the SE-100 in terms of firepower, but having 420s, like, nothing can really compete with that. That's really impressive even for heavy fighters at this tier. Um, so that's just one thing to keep in mind. In terms of ordnance, you have no ordnance, which is less than all the other planes. But if you had ordnance, it kind of would just slow you down. You can do so much more without ordnance. You can just focus on shooting down planes, and I never really find myself worrying for ordnance on this plane. If you want ordnance, you can get some of your other planes, but even at tier 5, the ordnance layout for most heavy fighters really isn't anything to write home about, so I'm not worried about missing out on it in the SE-100. Survivability, it is the on par for the best survivability, but as you can see, that may be due to equipment setup, but either way, it does have a lot of hit points compared to the rest of the planes, so it is kind of tanky, kind of while it's surviving. The next thing to keep in mind, airspeed, it's really not the fastest. Even with my equipment, it's not very fast. It's only 47, which is just slightly more than the Japanese, but lower than the other two, which is something to keep in mind, but that kind of is made up for in terms of maneuverability, at least I would think. Um, but even so, how does the Lightning have more maneuverability than the SE-100 and more airspeed? I don't know. I guess the Lightning is just kind of crazy in that regard. If I didn't really realize it, but the Lightning has better airspeed than most of the planes of the tier, better maneuverability than most of the heavies of the tier, and the best altitude performance out of anything at the tier. That's pretty crazy. So don't disregard the Lightning. It's got some power to it. But I mean, the maneuverability, I don't think it's that bad. It certainly isn't great. But the beauty of the SE-100 is it doesn't matter whether you have maneuverability or airspeed. Even if that isn't quite good enough, you have one of the best tail gunners at the tier. In fact, I think it is the best tail gunner at the tier. You get a 20 mil gun for a tail gunner. And if we compare that to the regular guns, it's actually better. It's got better effective range and more damage per second than your standard 20 mil guns, which is rather ridiculous. And to top that off, the gun elevation, gun depression, the field of fire, all fantastic attributes of the plane. And that tail gun has very, very good wide range. And you couple that with the effective fire range, it's just ridiculous. You'll see when we get to how I have the plane set up that effective tailgun range is even more incredible. You can take down heavy fighters, you can take down light fighters, you can take down basically anything that gets on your tail fairly reliably, even higher tier opponents with your tail gunner, and they can't do anything about it because you can usually kill them at ranges greater than what they can even shoot with their forward firing guns, thus making you invincible in the sense that you cannot be hurt by them tailing you if you can keep away from them. If you can keep them outside of the range of their forward firing guns, you will either dissuade the bots from leaving or they just can't hurt you in general, which is just ridiculous. Altitude performance, not good. That is probably the worst attribute of the SE-100 is the altitude. It's absolutely atrocious. Uh, and with the airspeed, I mean, if you're outside your altitude bracket, you are going to be feeling it, and it makes it a little bit tricky to go after high altitude heavies, such as the 110 or the Lightning. So I don't recommend it too much. You really make yourself sluggish at high altitude. Additionally, taking down German bombers can be a real living nightmare, so be careful when you do that. But I mean, outside of that, you can still force it up to that altitude if need be. And if you do it carefully, you can at least use your tail gunner to keep you protected. So it can be done, but you really have to be aware of your uh, limits and your weaknesses in this plane. The plane does not perform well at high altitude. So if I were to say the speciality of the SE-100 is its guns, that is by far its most defining feature, especially with that tail gunner. You have 420 mils forward firing guns, which just destroy everything tier 6 or tier 5 or tier 4. They all die the same. Uh, and additionally, that 20 mil tail gunner is about the effectiveness of one and a half of your forward firing guns, and so you can kill things even pretty easily with your tail gunner. And couple that with your range on the tail gunner, and it's just ridiculous what you can do with it. But its limitations are definitely its altitude performance, that it's its worst attribute, but its maneuverability is also not incredible, especially for a heavy, but of course you make that up for that for your tail gunner. If you can't outturn them, just go straight and try to use your speed to keep them at distance. to make their shots not hit you as much, and just kill them that way. With that out of the way, that's the stat overview. Let's quick go over the equipment and then move on. So I actually bought this plane for a number of reasons. Number one, it's overpowered as heck. The guns really do make this plane absolutely ridiculous. Um, and the ability to change it to whatever nation you want is also equally powerful. Um, and that tail gunner, I don't know if you guys ever know, but when you get those events, I know we haven't had them very recently, but when you get those like mission marathons, and it's like, hey, kill 5 enemy aircraft with your tail gunner in a single battle, and it's just like, this is stupid. Um, Generally, my go-to plane before this was the Tier 10 German GA, the MEP 1102B. But even that can be kind of finicky, and I had to kind of target GAs. I'd knock them out for the most part with my tail gunners, stay near their spawn, and finish them off with my tail gunner. I could do it within about maybe 7 or 8 matches. Uh, Sometimes I could do it a little bit quicker, but 7 or 8 matches was kind of reasonable, and it's kind of frustrating. It's just not a very fun mission to do. With the SE-100, you can get it on your first try almost every single time. If nothing else, you can probably get that mission done in about 3 out of 4 battles. I'd say 75% of the time you'd probably be able to complete the mission. It seems pretty reasonable. But that's why I got this. The guns and the tail gunner. The firepower on this plane allows you to get those aces when you need to get aces within tier 4 or higher planes. This is definitely my go-to plane. Lower tiers are slower, the AI is weaker, and players are usually not as competitive. So the SE-100 is by far your best pick, in my opinion, for those types of missions. But as for equipment, I want to enhance the firepower as much as possible. So really you only get 2 options, crew resistance to injuries or firing accuracy. Do firing accuracy. It's pretty self-explanatory. I chose to do a special project in the UK because I want to make it as powerful as possible. Engine slot, you get 4 different options. The 2 options I would advise you to go with, don't worry about maneuverability. Of course, that's not very important because your tail gunner can cover you if you can't outturn something, which is something that most planes can't say. But your tail gunner is so strong that you don't need to outturn your opponents most of the time. You just use your tail gunner. So I would advise you not to do maneuverability. Engine's resistance to damage also would not highly recommend you to do that. Boost efficiency or engine thrust, those are the 2 bonuses you would likely be going after. Uprated engine, again, not a bad option, but I just prefer boost. So whichever you choose out of those 2, I think there's an argument to be made for either. Forward firing guns, we're going to want to enhance the gun's capabilities as much as possible. Burst length, I really don't think there's an issue with your guns overheating too quickly. When they do overheat, they do take a little while to cool down, but they don't overheat quickly. And so I don't think burst length is really that effective. Furthermore, it's reducing your firing accuracy, which I don't know if I really want to do that. So I don't advise you to do that. I don't think it's the best use of your guns. You could do long gun barrels, and because your burst length isn't terrible, I don't think it would hinder your burst length too much. You'd probably still be able to be effective with it, but I don't really find it necessary. I want to be putting out as much damage as possible in the shortest amount of time, and then whatever I don't kill, I can use my tail gunner to finish off. Because planes are moving so slowly for the most part anyway, even if they are dodging and ducking and weaving, it's usually still pretty easy to hit them. So my advice is to do gas operated action. And of course the turret, the whole point of this is to get those missions with the 5 kills with your tail gunner within a single battle. And to do that, the best turret module is going to be the turret gun sight, which increases the range of fire in manual mode. With this equipment module, you can hit targets at 4,000 plus feet, which is really stupid. This is basically a tier 10 tail gunner at that point because that's about the same range that I'm getting in my tier 10 GA and tier 10 bombers. It's a little bit less, but basically non-existent. You are getting ridiculous range with your tail gunner. And because you have that range, anything within like 2,500 feet to 4,000 feet, you can still hit your opponents with maximum damage. And unless it's like a Yak 7 or something with a really nasty cannon, you can still hit them. And they can't hit you. And so I like being able to use that ability to keep them in the sweet spot where they can't hit me and I can hit them. It's especially useful against players. If you can keep some of your boost until an emergency and speed away from them and keep them within that beautiful golden zone, you can kill them, and generally humans will just be like, I gotta kill you, I'm gonna stay on your tail, and you'll just drain their hit points so quickly. So that is my advice. Special Turret of the USA. I can't think of a better plane at this period to use it on than the SE-100. Finally, we get to consumables, and it's just going to be your standard first aid kit, pneumatic control assist in case you're facing another heavy, maybe a chain lightning, or not a chain lightning, but a lightning, um, or like a Japanese heavy. You might be able to outturn them. You might be able to outturn a thunderbolt if you use this consumable. So I like using it for those situations where I don't it'd take too long to kill them with my tail gunner. I'd rather just outturn them and kill them with my front guns and get it over with. So that's why I'm using this. I'm certainly not going to use it on a Japanese Zero because the Japanese Zero is just going to outturn me, and most light fighters are still going to outturn me. But against other heavy fighters, or to turn around quickly on a bomber just so that their tail gunner isn't hitting me too much, those Soviet bombers can really be annoying with their tail gunners sometimes. So just using that can be pretty effective. And then engine slot, I think engine cooling is kind of a must for this plane. You could do the improved mixture control or the bottle for manual engine restarter, but usually I don't do the pneumatic restarter um, unless I have two engine consumable slots. But because I only have one slot, it's usually a toss up between engine cooling or improved mixture control. And the reason I advise people to do engine cooling instead is because the altitude performance is not great. So if you need to get after a target that's higher altitude than you, you really need to have engine boost. Without engine boost, you can't gain altitude easily. So that's my advice. Definitely go with engine cooling to get you to be able to get to higher altitudes that you otherwise just couldn't. And force yourself up there only when need be. Don't put yourself up there and stall yourself out for no reason. But if you can kill a bomber up there and then stall out, but really have no one that's gonna counter you, like a Mustang or anything, that's your best option. And then for ammunition, normally I do universal, but we had the Get 15 Battles marathon that just went on a couple days ago, or actually it was last weekend. So I put on uh, gold ammunition just to see how it was. And so the battle you're going to see is going to have gold ammunition. It was free. I had it in my depot. I have 70 still, so I was like, might as well use them. But unfortunately, I'm looking at my recordings of scores, and I'm only counting 14 battles. Oops. I may have missed one. So, oops. Maybe there was one I forgot to record on my sheet that I have right here, but you needed 15 battles in order to get in the running at all. So I may have screwed up right there. Frick. But even if that is the case, I've played enough battles in my GA, and that was kind of the side that I want to work on anyway, because I don't have the LBSH. So I mean, I hope it's enough. My average was about 18,000, 19,000 for GA, so I hope that's enough. It might not be because it is only top 5, and I know some people like Big Bad Wolf, um, or there's a couple other really good bomber players. They were posting scores of 24, 25,000 personal points with their bombers. They are just straight up better bombers than me, so it's very possible I won't be in the top 5, but I'm hoping that it was enough to get in the top 5. But yeah, that's really unfortunate because out of the 14 battles that I played and recorded, um, 7 of them were over 20,000 personal points, and 4 of them were over 30,000 personal points. So yeah, I mean, uh, this plane's really broken. The first battle I played solo with no additional help, I got 27,500 personal points. This plane really is overpowered to no end. The last thing I'll mention is the pilots. Definitely, okay, it's broken. Beautiful. But you can see I went with Marksman 1, Marksman 2, and then I went with Aerodynamics and Aerobatics Expert for a little bit more maneuverability. This is actually the pilot that I have on most of my German planes, so I didn't want to reset the skills. But if I wanted a dedicated SE-100 pilot, I probably would do Marksman 1, Marksman 2, Engine Guru 1, Engine Guru 2, and Resilience. I think those are the ones I would probably go for. But because this is kind of a universal pilot, I didn't want to retrain him for this specifically, so that's why he's just like that. Tail gunner, you want to get the ballistics expert. That's the one where you have to get the armor and then ballistics expert. But ballistics expert increases the range of your tail gunner further. That's how you can get it to really stupid ranges. And then defensive fire, so you're reducing the amount of damage you're taking when you're shooting at something with your tail gunner, which is great. And then precision gunner, it shoots at vulnerable parts of the plane. Really makes this plane absolutely deadly. If you're gonna, normally I won't say this, but if you want a plane that will truly do whatever you want it to, the SE-100 is the most overpowered plane at Tier 5, without a shadow of a doubt, and it's one of the most overpowered planes tier for tier in the game, in my personal opinion. And on top of that, you can make it whatever nation you want. It's just when you get it specialized and you get it maxed out, there's no better plane in the game than this. So if you're ever considering buying a premium, I know this one won't make as much credits as a tier 8 premium, but if you want something that's reliable for getting missions completed or just to have some fun, the SE-100 is a perfect go. I do recommend wait for a 50% discount because they usually do 50% discounts, and 50% off a tier 5 premium is just incredible. So, yeah, without further ado, I will jump into the gameplay. Alright, here's the replay. Yeah, it looks broken right now, but you just gotta wait for it to load. There we go. Now it loaded in. Alright, so I'm still really annoyed. Oh, how do I get rid of this again? Is the home button? Well, kind of. Why do I always forget? No. Why? Is it control? No, it's alt, right? No? Tab? Come on, get rid. Oh, there we go. It's control. Okay. Sorry about that. It's still really annoying that I don't have 15 battles, unless I just forgot to record one, which would be great. But my average out of the 15 battles was about 23,500 personal points. just out of the 14 battles that I did play. Uh, and part of that is I'm flying with Deathnail. I mean, not actually. We're not in a flight. But we kind of did that intentionally. Having each other on opposite teams allowed us to keep the battles even. And keeping the battles even allowed us both to get higher scores than normal because when only the first 15 battles are recorded, um, you don't want to get supremacy, nor do you want the enemy to get supremacy. You want the battle to last as long as possible. So in order for that to happen, we kind of did that. But before you guys say that we're rigging and stuff, I saw multiple other people post that they were doing similar things on the forums. We also used strategies such as playing when no one else wanted to. So I went to bed at around 6 in the afternoon and woke up at 3 in the morning so that I could play when no one else was playing. I did that multiple days over the weekend just to give myself the best advantage I could possibly do. Um, and that's kind of not really our fault, it's the way that the event itself was set up. Because only the first 15 battles were recorded for mastery, in order to be in the running, you wanted to give yourself the best advantage you could possibly do. When it's just the top 10 battles you get over the entire course of the weekend, it promotes people to play for as long as they want to try to get the best possible score that they can get until they're satisfied with the top 10 games. But in this version, we are, you know, it promotes people to do interesting tactics. Uh, for better or for worse, I don't know. I kind of prefer the first 15 battles because you play 15 battles, you're done. You are in the running, you don't have to play anymore if you don't want to, unless you want to go for perseverance, but I hate going for perseverance. I think the mastery is a lot more fun and easier for me to get, so I just rather would do that. Um, but yeah, let's get back to the replay. This plane so far has been absolutely destroying things left, right, and center. Uh, I haven't really shown the tail gunner too much, but let's see, am I using it right now? Yeah, alright, that was about 1,800 feet out is when I killed the P-43, which is pretty incredible. But you did see a little bit earlier when I was trying to go after that human bomber, I did get some hits on him, but I stalled out before I could do a whole lot to him. Um, and that's just something you have to understand. So one of the biggest strategies when you're flying the SE-100 is to gain your altitude, stay at about 5,500 feet. I think that's a pretty safe spot to stay because if you need to gain altitude to shoot bombers, you can, but shooting at planes lower than you is also easier without giving up too much of your altitude. Like this P-43, he was about 4,500 feet. We can take him out and gain our altitude right back. At Tier 5 and Tier 6, most planes stay within that 5,000 feet bracket anyway. You don't really need to get any more altitude outside of that. So to stay around 5,500 feet, especially in the beginning, is really a good thing. I think we're going to see the tail gunner in action right now. 2,300 feet, 2,500 feet is where we killed him with the tail gunner, and the range is much greater than that in certain situations. But for that specific situation, that's the range that we took them out at. Also, you're going to notice that we are spawn camping. This map is brilliant for this event because there's no airfields. When there's airfields, it means planes can spawn in multiple locations. This map has only a single spawn point, and because it has a single spawn point, whenever a plane dies, I know exactly where to go to find that plane once again. Um, is that spawn camping? Absolutely. Am I ashamed of it? No, because I wanted to get the most personal points I possibly could. And when you're trying to get the most personal points you could possibly get, also, that was an intentional suicide, so we would not get the military base, because if we got both military bases, this game would be over. So Deathnail and I both said I should crash up there so that we would not get the military base. I sacrificed some points there, but maybe I didn't, because if we would have gotten supremacy, my score would have been lower. That's Death Nail. I'm not going to shoot him down. He's got to try to keep it balanced, because right now the battle is very imbalanced. So he needs to do some work and try to balance it out. Um, but honestly, I almost prefer to be in his situation, because when you're fighting an uphill battle in these events, there's more targets to shoot when you're on the losing side. So generally, when we were doing this, the team, whether it was me or him, whoever was on the team that was losing was generally getting more points than the one that was winning. So it's just a little bit something to keep in mind. I have 19,000, almost 20,000 personal points right now. He's got 15,100 personal points. And really, I haven't had to try very hard at all this battle. I just made a single pass, destroyed everything I could possibly do. Whatever I didn't kill, just killed with a tail gunner. And I don't really go up or down. I stay kind of in the same altitude bracket. Uh, I don't try to turn fight. If I don't kill something, I just kill it with a tail gunner and keep moving. And that straight line gameplay is something that makes this plane very powerful, because you don't have to turn fight, you don't have to do boom and zoom. You can do your boom and zoom, but you're not out anything if you don't kill anything in the first pass, because your tail gunner can kill them. And that's the ridiculousness of this plane. Look, I took half his health off. Now it's time to use the tail gunner. Pop, 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 pop. Hitting at 2,500, 3,000. I could have still hit him, but I want to set up attacks on these guys. Um, so that's another thing you gotta keep in mind. Where are the enemy planes? Looks like the map is completely broken right now, so great job on replays. The group chat, or the team chat, or whatever you want to call it, clan chat, all that broke over the weekend. So great job. Wargaming screwed something else up. I This is a little bit of a side note. You're kind of seeing the SE-100. It's kind of just doing its own thing. No real challenge whatsoever. Just kind of doing my own thing and winning. There's really nothing more to say about that. But on a side note, I think I very well may stop doing YouTube for a little while, just because I haven't been playing World of Warplanes nearly as much. There's just no incentive. The game is broken. They keep introducing new bugs. They're not fixing anything new. The last real update we had was over 6 months ago. Like the last real update that we had was back in like September of last year. So, just, I mean, and even that was just European planes. The last real update that added content for everyone was back in December of 2017. Did I say that right? No, 2018. December of 2018 was the last time that we actually had real content. So, the, this game is kind of dying for me. I still really enjoy it, but I I'm not enjoying it to the same extent anymore. Furthermore, YouTube has really not been very interactive. Videos that I upload don't really get much community interaction. The videos are getting fewer and fewer views. Part of that's probably because I don't upload every single day, which is expected. But when you're in college, you're kind of limited on what you can do. Um, but I've just kind of lost my enjoyment for the game, and I don't really want to fly it or play it too much anymore. So that's kind of that. I don't think I'll be doing a whole lot more YouTube. Um, I can tell that the player base has dropped, the updates have dropped, um, and YouTube is less interactive. There's less people looking at my YouTube videos than it was when I was doing it about 2 years ago. So I don't really see much of a point anymore. The game really is not what it was. If there's an update, or I get a break, or I just want to play, then I will. And I'll make some videos covering the new content or the events or what have you. That's the reason why I played this last weekend was because there was an event, but uh, honestly, I probably would not have flown during the event if it wasn't for spring break. College is no longer in session. Well, it will be very soon. At the end of this weekend, I'll be back in college, but I had this week off. But even then, I only played during the weekend. I've played nothing during the whole week. It's just I don't have drive to do so anymore. So I may not be flying anymore. Or at least if I do, it'll be much less, and I will not be making YouTube videos even if I do fly for the most part. So, sorry about that, but if I get a good battle, um, or I do jump on and play for a little while and, you know, get something I want to share, then I'll make a video over it, but I'm not enjoying the game like I used to. 31,600 personal points is the result for this battle. This was not the only battle that I had over 30,000. As you said, I had four 30k games during the event, and none of them are going to count because I only had 14 battles recorded. So, it sucks. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. I tried to condense the video as much as I possibly could due to requests from my last video. If you prefer this format, please let me know, but I may not do any more videos um, for a little while. So, yeah, with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.